Dear friends, now I would like to narrate the epic of Mahabharata. Not in detail, but in a nutshell, I want to say something about it. Listen carefully. The Mahabharata is an ancient Indian epic where the main story revolves around two branches of family, the Pandavas and Kauravas, who in the Kurukshetra war battle for throne of Hastinapur. Interwoven into his narrative are several small stories about people dead or living and philosophical discourses. Krishna, Dwaipayan, Vyas, whom we call Prashanandan Vedavyas, himself a character in the epic, composed it. As according to tradition, he dictated the verses and Ganesh wrote them down. At 100,000 verses, it is the longest epic poem ever written, generally thought to have been composed in the 4th century before Christ or earlier. The events in the epic play out in the Indian subcontinent and surrounding areas. It was first narrated by a student of Vyas at a snake sacrifice of the great-grandson of one of the major characters of this story, including within it the Bhagavad Gita. The Mahabharata is one of the most important texts of ancient India, indeed world literature. Shantanu, the king of Hastinapur, was married to Ganga, with whom he had a son called Devbrat. Several years later, when Devbrat had grown up to be an accomplished prince, Shantanu fell in love with Satyavati. Her father refused to let her marry the king unless the king promised that Satyavati's son and descendants would inherit the throne. Unwilling to deny Devbrat his rights, Shantanu declined to do so. But the prince, on coming to know of the matter, rode over to Satyavati's house, vowed to renounce the throne and to remain celibate throughout his life. The prince then took Satyavati home to the palace so that the king, his father, could marry her. On account of the terrible vow that he did take in that day, Devbrat came to be known as Bhishma. Shantanu was so pleased with his son and he granted to Devbrat the boon of choosing the time of his own death. All of you know, I have seen in the serial also, directed by Chopra. Now, in time, Shantanu and Satyavati had two sons. Soon thereafter, Shantanu died. Satyavati's sons, still being minors, the affairs of the kingdom were managed by Bhishma and Satyavati. By the time these sons reached adulthood, the elder one had died in his skirmish with some Gandharvas, heavenly being, so the younger son, Vichitravirya, was enthroned. Bhishma then abducted the three princes of neighboring kingdom and brought them over to Hastinapur to be wedded to Vichitravirya. You know, Chitrangad and Vichitravirya were two sons of Shantanu. The eldest of these princes declared that she was in love with someone else, so she was let go. The two other princes were married to Vichitravirya, who died soon afterwards childless. So that the family line did not die out, Satyavati summoned her son Vyas to impregnate the two queens. Vyas had been born to Satyavati of a great sage named Parashar before her marriages to Shantanu. Do you know who were three princes of Kashi Naresh? Amba, Ambalika, Ambika, Ambalika, whom Bhishma abducted. According to the laws of the day, a child born to an unwed mother was taken to be a stepchild of the mother's husband. By that token, Vyas could be considered Shantanu's son and could be used to perpetuate the Kuru clan that ruled Hastinapur. Thus, by the Neo custom, the two queens each had a son of Vyas. To the elder queen was born a blind son called Dhritarashtra, and to the younger was born an otherwise healthy but extremely pale son called Pandu. Due to his color, he was called Pandu. To a maid of these queens was born a son of Vyas child called Vidur. Bhishma brought up the three boys with great care. Dhritarashtra grew up to be the strongest of all princes in the country. Pandu was extremely skilled in warfare and archery, and Vidur knew all the branches of learning, politics, and statesmanship. With the boys grown, it was now time to fill up the empty throne of Hastinapur. Dhritarashtra, the eldest, was bypassed because the laws barred a disabled person from being king. Pandu instead crowned. Bhishma negotiated Dhritarashtra's marriage with Gandhari, the Pandu with Kunti and Madri. Pandu expanded the kingdom by conquering the surrounding areas and brought in considerable war booty. With things running smoothly in the country and with its coffers full, Pandu asked his elder brother to look after the state affairs and returned to the forest with his two wives for some time off. Now, a few years later, Kunti returned to Hastinapur. There were 5 little boys and the bodies of Pandu and Madri. The 5 boys were the sons of Pandu, born to his wives through his Neo custom from gods. The eldest was born of Dhar, the second of Dayu, the third of Indra, and the youngest twins of the Ashwins. In the meanwhile, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari too had 12 children for their own, 100 sons and 1 daughter. The Kuru elders performed the last rites of the Pandu and Madri, and Kunti and the children were welcomed into palace. All of the 105 princes were subsequently entrusted to the care of teacher, Kripa, on Kripacharya at first, and additionally Dronacharya later. Drona's school at Hastinapur attracted several other boys. Karna of the Sud clan was one such boy. It was here that hostilities quickly developed between the son of Dhritarashtra, collectively called the Kauravas, patronymic of the ancestor of Kuru, and the sons of Pandu, collectively called the Pandavas, patronymic of their father. Duryodhana The eldest Kaur tried and failed to poison Bhim. The second Pandava, Karna, because of his rivalry in archery with the third Pandava, Arjuna, allied himself with Duryodhana. In time, the princes learned all they could from their teachers, and the Kuru rulers decided to hold a public skill exhibition of the princes. It was during this exhibition that the citizen became plainly aware of the hostilities between the two branches of the royal family. Duryodhana and Bhima had a mass fight that had to be stopped before things turned ugly. Karna, uninvited as he was not a Kuru prince, challenged Arjuna, was insulted on account of his non-royal birth, and was crowned king of the vassal state, spotted by Duryodhana. It was also around this time that questions began to be raised about Dhritarashtra occupying the throne, since he was supposed to be holding it only in trust of Pandu, the crowned king. To keep peace in the realm, Dhritarashtra declared the eldest Pandava, Yudhishthira, as the crown prince and her parents. Yudhishthira, being the crown prince and his rising popularity with the citizen, was extremely distasteful to Duryodhana, who saw himself as rightful heir since his father was the de facto king. He plotted to get rid of Pandavas. This he did by getting his father to send Pandavas and Kunti off to a nearby town on the pretext of the fair that was held there. The palace in which the Pandavas were to stay in that town was built by a agent of Duryodhana. The palace in which the Pandavas were to stay in that town was built by agent of Duryodhana. The palace was made entirely of inflammable material, since the plan was to burn down the palace together with the Pandavas and Kunti once they settled it. The Pandavas, however, were alerted to this fact by their own uncle, Vidur, and had counterplanned it. They dug an escape tunnel underneath their chambers. One night, the Pandavas gave out a huge feast, which all of the town folk came to. At the feast, the forest women and the pipe sons found themselves so well fed and well drunk that they could no longer walk straight. They passed out on the floor of the hall. That very night, the Pandavas themselves set fire to the place and escaped through the tunnel. When the flames had died down, the townsfolk discovered the bones of forest women and boys, and mistook them for Kunti and Pandavas. Duryodhana thought this plan had succeeded, and that the world was free of Pandavas. Meanwhile, the Pandavas and Kunti went to hiding, moving from one place to another and passing themselves off as poor Brahmin people. They would seek shelter with some villagers for a few days. The princes would go out daily to beg for food, return in the evenings and hand over the day's evenings to Kunti, who would divide the food into two. One half was for the strong man Bhim, and other half was shared by the others. During these wanderings, Bhim killed two demons, married a demoness, and had a demon child called Ghatotkacha. They then heard about the Swayamvar, a ceremony to choose a suitor, being organized for the princes of Panchal, and went at Panchal to see the festivities. According to their practice, they left their mother home and set out for arms. They reached the Swayamvar hall, where the king was giving away things most lavishly to arms seekers. The brothers set themselves down in the hall to watch the fun. The princess dropped the burn of fire, was prayed for beauty, and every prince from every country for miles around had came to the Swayamvar, hoping to win her hand. The conditions of the Swayamvar were difficult. A long pole on the ground had a circular contraption spinning at its top. On this moving disc was attached a fish. At the bottom of the pole was shallow urn of water. A person had to look down into his water mirror, use the bow, and 5 arrows that were provided and pierced the fish spring on top. 5 attempts were allowed. It was evident that only an extremely skilled archer, such as the now presumed dead Arjun, could pass the test. One by one, the king and princess tried to shoot the fish and failed. Some could not even lift the bow. Some could not string it. The Kauravas and Karna were also present. Karna picked up the bow and strung it in moment, but was prevented from taking aim when Draupadi declared she would not marry anyone from the Sud clan. After every one of the royals had failed, Arjun the third Pandava stepped up to the pool, picked up the bow, strung it, affixed all of the 5 arrows to it, looked down into the water, aimed, shot, and pierced the fish eye with all of the 5 arrows in the single attempt. Arjun had won Draupadi's head. The Pandava's brother, still in the guise of poor Brahmins, took Draupadi back to the hut. They were staying at the shouted for Kunti. Ma, come and see what we have brought back to you. Kunti saying, whatever it is, shed among thy yourself. Came out of the hut, saw that it was not ours, but the most beautiful woman she had ever set her eyes on, and stood still as the import of her words sank in the everybody present. Meanwhile, Draupadi, twin woman, unhappy that his royal sister should be married off to a poor commoner, had secretly followed the Pandavas back to their hut. Also following them secretly was Dark Prince and his brother Krishna and Balram of the Yadu clan, who had suspected that unknown archer could be none other than Arjun, who had been presumed dead at the palace burning incident several months ago. These princes were related to the Pandavas. Their father was Kunti's brother, but they had never met before. By design of happenstance, Vyas also arrived at this scene at this point, and the Pandava hut was alive for a while with happy cries of meetings and reunions. To keep Kunti's words, it was decided that Draupadi, the common wife of all her 5 Pandavas, her brother Ditdum and her father, the king Draupad, were reluctant with this unusual arrangement, but were talked about it by Vyas and Yudhishthira. After the wedding ceremonies at Panchal were over, the Hastinapur palace invited the Pandavas and their bride back. Dhritarashtra made the great show of happiness, discovering that Pandavas were alive after all, and he was partitioned the kingdom, giving them huge tract of barren land to settle in rule one. The Pandavas transformed this land into a paradise. Yudhishthira was crowned there, and he performed a sacrifice that involved all the kings of the land to accept, either voluntarily or by force, his suzerainty. The new kingdom in the past prospered. Meanwhile, the Pandavas had entered into the agreement among themselves regarding Draupadi. She was to be wife of each Pandavas by turn per year. If any Pandavas was to enter the room where she was present with her husband of that year, that Pandava was to be exiled for 12 years. It so happened that once Draupadi and Yudhishthira, husband of that year, were present in the armory when Arjun entered it to take his bow and arrows. Consequently, he went off in exile, during which he toured the entire country down to its southernmost tip and married 3 princes he met along the way. The prosperity of Indraprastha and the power of Pandavas was not something that Duryodhana liked. He invited Yudhishthira to a dice game and got his uncle Shakuni to play on his behalf. Shakuni was an accomplished player. Yudhishthira was taught and lost step by step his entire wealth, his kingdom, his brothers, himself, and Draupadi. Draupadi was dragged into the dice hall insulted. There was an attempt to destroy her, and Bhim lost his temper and vowed to kill each and every one of the Kauravas. Things Things came to such a boil that Dhritarashtra intervened unwillingly, gave the kingdom and their freedom back to the Pandavas Draupadi, and sent them up back to the Indraprastha. This angered Duryodhana, who tagged his father around and invited Yudhishthira to another dice game. This time, the condition was that the loser would go on 12 years exile, followed by a year of life incognito. If they were to be discovered during his incognito period, the loser would have to repeat 12 plus 1 cycle. The dice game was played, Yudhishthira lost game. For this exile, the Pandavas left their aging mother Kunti behind at Hastinapur in Vidur's place. They lived in forest, hunted game, and visited holy spots. At around this time, Yudhishthira asked Arjuna to go to the heavens in quest for celestial weapons because by now it was apparent that their kingdom would not be returned to them peacefully after the exile and they had to fight for it. Arjuna did so, and not only he learned the techniques of several divine weapons from the gods, he also learned how to sing and dance from the Gandharvas. After 12 years, the Pandavas were incognito for a year. During this 1 year period, they lived in the Virat kingdom. Yudhishthira took up employment as a king's counselor. Bhim worked in the royal kitchen. Arjuna turned himself into eunuch and taught the palace maidens how to sing and dance. The twins worked at the royal stable and Draupadi became a handmaiden to the queen. At the end of the incognito period, during which they were not discovered despite Duryodhana's best efforts, the Pandavas revealed themselves. The Virat king was Varbhai. He offered his daughter in marriage to Arjuna, but he declined, since he had been her dance teacher the past year. As a student, were keen to children. The princess was married instead to Arjuna's sons Abhimanyu. At this wedding ceremony, a large number of Pandavas allies gathered to draw out a war strategy. Meanwhile, emissaries had been sent to Hastinapur to demand Indraprastha back, but the mission had been failed. Krishna himself went on a peace mission and failed. Duryodhana refused to give away as much land as was covered by the point of any day, let alone the 5 villages proposed by the peace mission. The Kauravas also gathered their allies around them and even broke away key Pandavas alive. The maternal uncle of the Pandavas twin, by trickery, war became inevitable. Just before the war hughes was sounded, Arjuna saw arrayed before him his relatives. His great-grandfather Bhishma, who had practically brought him up, his teachers Kripa and Drona, his brothers the Kauravas, and for a moment his resolution wavered. Krishna, the warrior par excellence, had given up arms for this war and had elected to be Arjuna's charioteer. To him Arjuna said, "Take me back, Krishna. I can't kill these people. They were my father, my brother, my teacher, my uncle, my son. What good is a kingdom that's gained at the cost of their lives?" Then followed a philosophical discourse that has today become a separate book on its own, the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna explained the impermanence of life to Arjuna and the importance of doing one's duty and of sticking to the right path. Arjuna picked up his bow again. Sukh dukhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayo tato yuddha yujyasva naivam papam vapisti. If you proceed to war treating equally joy and sorrow, gain and loss, victory and defeat, you do not sin. Like this, another verse. Karmanye vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan ma karma phal hetubhu ma sangastu akarmani. You have a right only to work. You have no claim to the fruits thereof. Don't let unexpected result dictate your actions. Don't sit idle either. The battle raged for 18 days. The army totaled 18 akshams. Akshuni. 18 Akshaunis, 7 on the Pandavas side and 11 on the Kauravas. You know, in one Akshauni army, there are 21,870 chariots, 21,870 elephants, 65,610 horses, and 150 soldiers on foot. Collectively, this type of army is called Akshaunis. Casualties on both sides were high, but it is all ended. The Pandavas had won the war but lost almost everyone they held there. Duryodhana and all of the Kauravas had died, as had all the menfolk of Draupadi's family, including all her son by the Pandavas. The now dead Karna was revealed to be a son of Kunti's from before her marriage to Pandu, and thus the eldest Pandavas and the rightful heir to the throne. The grand old man Bhishma lay dying. The teacher Drona was dead, as were several kinsfolk related to them, either by blood or by marriage. In about 18 days, the entire country lost almost 3 generations of its men. It was a war not seen on this scale before. It was the great Indian war, the Mahabharata. After the war, Yudhishthira became king of Hastinapur and Indraprastha. The Pandavas ruled over 36 years, after which they dedicated in favor of Abhimanyu's son, Parikshit. The Pandavas and Draupadi proceeded on foot to the Himalayas, intending to live out their last days climbing the slopes of heavenwards. One by one, they fell on his last journey, and their spirits ascended to the heavens. Years later, Parikshit's son succeeded his father as king. He held a big sacrifice at which the entire story was recited for the first time by a disciple of Vyas called Vaishampayan. Since that time, this story has been retold countless times, expanded upon, and retold again. The Mahabharata remains popular to this day in India. It has been adapted and cast in contemporary mode in several films and plays. Children continue to be named after the characters in epic. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the holiest of Hindu scriptures. Beyond India, the Mahabharata story is popular in Southeast Asia, in cultures, and that were influenced by Hinduism, such as Indonesia and Malaysia. So this was the story of Mahabharata in a nutshell, my dear friends. And this epic is so great that till now you could not find such a great epic in the world. This is the greatest epic of the world. We Indians are proud of this type of epic, like Mahabharata, also along with the Ramayana, whose bases are Vedants, Upanishads, Veds. So, Prashanandan Vyas with the Vyas, our respected Rishi, wanted to explain the fundamentals of Vedanta pragmatically. So he tried for common public, for common people, in simple words of shlokas. And his effort, I understand, is fulfilled. The same way, the Ramayana was written by Valmiki, the first poet, in his shlokas. But Tulsidas made it simple in Hindi, so that common people could understand better what the story of Ram and what the story of Kauravas Pandavas. Thank you very much.